a niche company that was focused on advanced analytics and intelligent automation. Today, Boundaryless has operations in 6 countries, and it's proud to employ several UiPath MVPs. Eric, bring it on, and the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tomasz, for the introduction, and thanks. Actually, I'm very humbled and honored to speak to 3 communities at the same time. So also thank you, Russell and KY, and of course Juveria and Lahiru, who have been preparing this and spent several sessions with me. I'll see if I can share my presentation. I'm doing it right now. It works. Let's see if I can put it on the screen. So can everybody see that? Or maybe Tomasz, if you can just confirm.
Yes, I can see your screen, Eric. Thank you.
All right. Think before you automate. It's a topic that comes up a lot. As I mentioned, as you mentioned, I have worked in process improvement for 25 years, and it's always a big argument. Do we automate first and then fix it, or do we actually look at the process first and then automate it? Maybe very quickly, this is not a company presentation. You've heard about me already. I worked for the 2 big Swiss banks, which were not on the summary, but the UBS and Credit Suisse as well. And I was the RPA lead for the company that owns brands like Oakley and Ray-Ban, and of course, using UiPath. And that's how I got exposed to the UiPath community. And actually, I started working with one of the first UiPath MVPs there. In 2019, there were only 7 MVPs, and I was quite impressed. And as I set up my company, I thought, well, why don't I try to bring some of these MVPs on to the team? And that's exactly what has happened. So, you know, for instance, Lahiru and also Florent Salendres, who was an MVP in 2019 and 2020, they're employees in different countries. So Florent works in France, Lahiru works in and from Sri Lanka. And in the meantime, we also have some of the other MVPs that are working with us on projects as we speak. So we have a project in the Middle East, actually 2 projects in the Middle East where we are doing work for clients and trying to impress them with the capabilities that UiPath has. And the nice thing about working with MVPs, like Lahiru is a good example, they have extra knowledge on what can be done, but also like Lahiru has a document understanding specialist, and you will see him again on the DevCon that was just announced in a few weeks, where he talks more about that particular topic. What I want to do today is talk to you about process redesign. Really, maybe a quick, I know lesson is probably a bit too provocative, but a quick introduction and give you some tools and some ideas that hopefully you can apply yourself. As Tomasz mentioned, like a lot of the posts that I see on LinkedIn from the UiPath community members are often very technical in nature, right? And while it's good to learn the technical capabilities, it's also probably good to come from a recipient perspective as well. The person that's receiving the automation, either the one that has to work with that or the one that you provide the service to, are they also getting the right solution for them? And if there's one thing I'd like you to take away from today is give you a few tools so you already have an analytical mindset and turn that analytical mindset into a critical mindset, and develop even better solutions than you are today, maybe. Part of the session today will also be some interactive elements. So Juveria and Lahiru have prepared a little bit of a survey later on a case study. I was thinking as I throw up this page that maybe we should have also a survey around what is your favorite quote. The first quote is actually from a gentleman called Bill Gates, who says, you know, only automate an efficient process, please. The second one, I think, is meant a little bit humoristically, and the third one it comes from my personal experience, having done process improvement methodologies like Six Sigma and Lean. You find a lot of practitioners that they don't want to have anything to do with automation. They want to change the process only. And I think if in now 2021, if you're looking at process improvement and you don't consider what is possible with with automation, be it RPA, be it AI, and everything that UiPath offers, you're missing a trick. But likewise, if you're doing automation and you don't think about making the process better as you are automating it, I think you're missing a trick as well. And this is where I preach a little bit, maybe. I'm on my soapbox to say, hey, we can combine these two disciplines and deliver even better solutions. Typical development roadmap, as you see, like this is something we use. We call it the 7 Ds, of course, define, discover, etc. But the idea would be, after you've assessed the process, to then have that step back and think, what in this process can we actually change? And it doesn't have to be a major project to make changes, but are there things we can change to make the process better? And do that as you ultimately will drive an improvement. And I like to give you some real life examples, right? But it's like one example of we were working for a leasing company in the Netherlands, which is actually my home country. And for every new user, they had to complete a web form. And every web form actually needed to have the administrative assistant. So if Eric was typing in the data, I always had to say, this is Eric, this is my address, this is my details. And as we were automating that, and they have like 70 new users a day, we realized that doesn't make any sense, that step. Can't we be smarter? So we found a solution to actually automate and even skip that user interface form and just go directly into the database. And you can imagine how much time that would save, right? So the 70 entries would normally take about 1 minute and 20 seconds each. We timed it. But people need a coffee break and everything. So that would easily be a few hours. And after automating that, we did the upload in 30 seconds. And this is what I mean with think about how you can change your process. Because if you can take something from 2 hours to 30 seconds, you can imagine the business impact that has. And as a consequence, the company we worked for, they were so impressed that of course we're doing the next wave of projects with them. And it's just a small illustration of like why it's better to sometimes just step back and think a little bit about what a process looks like. This is the first of a set of probably 3 very quick, more theory pages, introducing the concept of lean to you. Many may know that lean is originally the production process at Toyota, like what made Toyota a great company. And it can also be applied not just in car manufacturing, but also in services, because it's really looking at a process and trying to figure out what does the customer care about in this process, and how do I take everything away that gets in the way of what the customer wants. Of course, you don't want to have an incremental risk, you don't want to have incremental cost, but the whole idea with lean is based on customer value, and in order to create value, you eliminate waste. And I'll show on the next page what is meant with waste, but think about if we make mistakes or if we have to wait, that's considered waste. So if you stop taking away, or if you take away these wasteful elements in the process becomes faster. I just gave you the example with the leasing company. You also get better quality because less mistakes, less handoffs speaks for itself, like less human error probably. It reduces cost, and ultimately it improves the value for the client. So think about who is receiving the outcome of your automation. And what is the best way to help that person without more risk or without jeopardizing quality, of course. Right? It's a continuous improvement method. Now, here is waste explained to you, and I apply that to what I call office processes. You can also call it service processes. And the nice thing is it comes down to 8 categories of waste, and together they spell downtime, which I think is a nice play with words. You can read for yourself, and Juveria and Lahiro will share the documents afterwards, so you can look this up in more detail. But you can obviously see if we have defects, if we do much more than is actually needed, is overproduction. Waiting time hopefully speaks for itself. Then non-utilized talent. And this is where RPA often is the best solution. Are we using people's skills to actually do something that a person maybe shouldn't be doing because automation can do it more easily? And then at the bottom row, you see transport, which is really if we are moving items, if we move paper, for instance, around. Inventory is where we have a stack of paper or a stack of emails, maybe waiting somewhere. Motion is if people have to move around to get work done. And excessive processing, yeah, the word sometimes that's used is gold plating. Are we trying to be too perfectionistic and rather than just doing what is needed? So those are the 8 types of waste that if you remove those would improve your process. There's a few more examples. I already spoke a little bit about these elements as I was explaining the concept. So I would suggest I share this with you afterwards, and you have hopefully some questions to ask yourself for your next automation project. But it's of course great to think about how do I make a process better? How do I eliminate what's getting in the way? But it's also sometimes good to know what is actually the problem we're trying to fix. Is the problem that it takes too long? Is the problem that there are mistakes being made somewhere? And this is a short introduction in finding the actual problem, where I have an example and a video to entertain you a little bit. And it's a simple approach. It's almost like what a child does, ask why all the time, right? So asking why 5 times is a bit of a rule of thumb, but you ask why until you find what is the real problem. And it helps you figure out. And a simple example that we use in training is you're in a hotel and you order room service and it arrives and it's cold, right? And of course you blame the kitchen and you blame, you may have assumptions about what went wrong, right? And well, obviously, why is it cold? Well, there was a long waiting time. And okay, but why was there a long waiting time? And you go, well, if you ask around, it turned out that the elevators were not available. People were using the elevator for something else. And then again, why was the elevator being used so often? Well, we had extra laundry runs. Why is that then? Well, actually, we didn't order enough detergent and we ran out of it. And that's, as you see here, the room service complaints have nothing to do with the kitchen staff or the person delivering it. It had to do with let's say the ordering of the detergent. And it's a little bit the same with these process analysis that we do. Try to figure out what is driving the real issue and see if you can fix that. Don't jump to conclusions, this is as it says in the subtitle. And there's a nice illustration here, and I'm going to show you a video in just a second, but maybe give you a background. This is a real life example in Washington, the Jefferson Memorial. And we were talking, one of the quotes was about crappy processes. Well, this is a different interpretation of a crappy process, because what happens at the Jefferson Memorial is that they have to clean the memorial all the time because there's so many birds and the birds do their thing and all the bird droppings are everywhere in the memorial. And they try to put nets up to stop the birds from coming. It didn't help. And then they decided to apply this 5 times why. And you might be surprised with what they found. So let me see if I can start that. Can everybody see my screen? I don't know if I actually shared the audio. I may have to stop sharing and come back again. Let me do that, guys.
Yeah, we can able to see.
Yeah, but I need to probably stop the share. I don't know, how do I do that? New share. Because there is an opportunity to share with the computer audio share sound.
Yeah, when you start sharing, right, Eric, you have to enable the checkbox.
Yeah. So I hope this works now. Let me see. Give me some feedback, Thomas.
Years ago, the stone exterior was deteriorated at the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C., a popular monument in the United States. Repairing the stone or painting over the worn areas was too expensive. So park rangers turned to root cause analysis and started asking why.
Why was the stone deteriorating? High-powered sprayers were being used to wash the memorial every 2 weeks.
Why were high-powered washings needed every 2 weeks?
Because of bird droppings.
Asking why stopped because it seemed the cause was found. Workers put nets around the building, but they were unsightly, and the birds found ways around them. So it was back to the drawing board, or the 5 whys.
Why are there so many birds?
They come to feed on spiders.
Why are there so many spiders?
They feed on insects at night.
Why are there so many insects?
They're attracted by lights that shine on the memorial at night.
With a new cause found, questions stopped, and a plan was created to reduce the amount of time the memorial spent in the spotlight at night, and it worked. The insects were reduced by 90%, and with the root cause removed, the excessive cleaning was no longer needed. An unexpected benefit was a cost savings realized by using less electricity. This highlights how root cause analysis can involve trial and error, and how the 5 whys isn't always limited to exactly 5 questions. Read more about root cause analysis and the Jefferson Memorial story at the link below.
Good. I'm back in the presentation mode, I hope. Let me see.
This is a simple example of how to conduct a 5 why.
I lost control.
What I'm showing is a 1 why. It points out that the Titanic sank because the ship hit an iceberg.
Guys.
That says
This. I need to reshare my presentation now. So I hope I'm back.
Yes.
Good. My system is a bit slow to progress it now. Oh, it goes again to the video. Sorry for that. Here we go. So after that video, so the next page is around a method which is called ECRS, and as you probably figured out, that means eliminate, combine, rearrange, and simplify. Because once you know what's wrong with a process, you can ask yourself the following questions: What do I do about it, right? And the first obvious step, the first question should always be: can we stop doing this? Can I stop having to enter the user ID of the person doing the data entry for every individual client, right? There's also a question around mistake proofing, and an example from my time at Credit Suisse, the bank, was that if you get money out of an ATM machine, it's not an automation example, sorry, but if you get the money out of an ATM machine and you get your money first and then your card, a lot of people forget their card. So what we did there is we actually gave you the card back first, and only after you took out your card, you could take your money. And it's simple process, but you can imagine that it prevents a lot of people who forget their cards, because the bank used to have a separate process for all these lost cards before we made that change. And it's sometimes small things that can prevent errors from happening in the process. And I'm just giving you some examples to maybe think about and hopefully to recognize. Of course, combine, can I do, like, if I have 5 people doing different things, would it be possible to actually consolidate that a little bit? Rearrange, can we do things in parallel so we don't have to wait for one step to be completed? Also, sometimes in the IT world, can we run a batch? Can we run a batch overnight? Can we have an unattended bot do this so so a person doesn't have to press the button, right? It's an actual example. And of course, simplify, which includes a lot, but like one of the examples I had also in a bank is there was a complaint that it took us 6 months to launch a new product, and then we did the process analysis, and we found that they were asking for 12 signatures to actually get the process out. And then of course you go, well, is 12 signatures really a sign of quality, or can we do with a few less, right? And of course, every waiting time for a signature takes time. So those are some simple examples of how you can fix process issues that create waste, as we just saw. And there's a few more examples. Again, I'll let you have a quick look. I'm not going to explain the page. You can read for yourself. But again, we'll share the document afterwards. But it hopefully gives you some ideas, maybe some new thoughts. And it's all, like, lean is not rocket science, right? It's not higher statistics. It's really, a lot of it is common sense, to be honest. But it's knowing when to use it. I guess that comes from practicing this a little bit. So I hope you find that it's common sense for you too, and that it's something you can actually use in some of your automations. Now, we did prepare a process example because, of course, we want to not have this be a theory session only. So we show you a real process. As you can see, Juveria is getting ready for the interactive element. But this is a recruitment process, a real-life recruitment process that I have been exposed to, where we would publicize open jobs, and people would send emails with their resumes. And if you read through this, hopefully, after listening in a little bit, you see that there's quite a few opportunities to make this process smarter. And again, this is not a constructed example, it's a real life example. Of course, we highlighted some of the issues very clearly. So now the exercise we're going to do is we have I think about 5 questions to identify where you see waste in this process, where this downtime applies. And we're going to do it in a quiz form. And with that, Juveria, I hand over to you.
Thank you, Eric. So shortly, I'll share my screen, and I would like all our participants to go to menti.com. So allow me time. Let me do that. Eric, maybe you have to stop the share so that I can continue. Thank you.
I think for a while we saw your screen, Juveria, menti.com, right?
Yes, so I want all of you to go to menti.com and use the code 16899967 to log into and have a name for yourself so that we can begin. I'll wait for a couple of minutes, maybe like until 5:32 my time, I'll start.
Maybe you can type in the number in the chat panel, or because I forgot it already.
Okay, let me do that. You can see it on my screen as well. It is 16899967. So the code is over here.
Just to let you know, you're not sharing your screen right now, Juveria.
Oh, I see. Let me reshare. Okay, I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, Tomasz. There are a couple of people joining. It's good to see. Okay, so I'll start the quiz. All the best. So this is your first question. And now you can answer. You have 1 minute to answer each question. So below over here, you can see the timer. All right, let's see. So 8 answered overproduction, and overproduction was the right answer for this question. Let's move on to the next question. HR proceeds to enter Jane Doe's information in the company database manually. Classify this into downtime. So 11 people actually voted for non-utilized talent, but it is actually a defect in non-utilized talent. So we would be having a solution to all these questions, and Eric will walk you through the solution. So let's complete the quiz first. Let's move on to the next question. The HR prints 3 copies of the resume and matches it to the open role in the organization. Classify this into downtime. Let's wait for the results. Wow, 17 people answered overproduction and excessive processing. So we are actually getting there to recognize the process waste. That's a good sign. Let's move to the next question. Now the HR decides to go and pick the printed resume. Do you think it can be classified into downtime? I think this is a very simple question that we have. Self-explanatory. All right, let's see. Motion and transport. And yes, that's the right answer. We are actually getting there. So next question is our last question of the quiz. Let's go for it. All the best. Inventory and waiting time, that's correct. So I think, Eric, we did actually make an impact and we were able to explain people about the process waste. So let's check the leaderboard.
This is where we do the drum roll. Right?
Yeah, actually. Ooh, so that was, so here's our winner. So, okay, congratulations. I'll stop my share and I'll give it to Eric so that he can explain you the original solution as how this process can be automated, eliminating all the kind of waste that we've discussed. That's downtime. So Eric, over to you. I'll stop my share.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, like it's these exercises are a little bit difficult. So this was the initial process. Let's start with that. And I just wanted to add before people think, oh, this, like if you had a few wrong, just see it as learning, right? We're trying to teach you something, and I hope you don't dismiss this as not useful, but maybe explain. So this is a page that I had actually stuck in the back. Maybe two quick pointers, because there were two questions where most people had were maybe on the wrong foot. One is that the HR person was adding Jane Doe's information into the system, and it was seen as non-utilized talent by almost everybody, but a few people probably picked up that the person who applied was actually John and not Jane. And it gives you and hopefully maybe you slap yourself in the forehead now, but it was actually an example of a human error, right? So somebody, like people, we all make mistakes, and therefore automation is such a crucial solution in many cases, right? Because the robot does not have these lack of attention errors. The other question where a lot of people made a mistake is the documents are printed in a printer room, and it's motion and transport, because first of all, motion means a person actually is walking around, has to move, and transport is when the information is actually in a different room. So now it's also that the form, the printed resume, is actually in a different room and needs to be picked up. So it's maybe a little bit of an abstract exercise, but I think generally speaking, you all got an initial good grasp, I think. And if you had a question wrong, so be it. And hopefully this helped a little bit also to do better next time. And let me end with just also showing the solution we implemented, which was of course an automated solution. So we could not really change the first process, right? It's the candidate applying from home. But then a lot changed, and I highlighted the things we stopped doing. So there was basically there was an automated confirmation to the candidate after applying online. We stopped all this printing and all this shuffling of paper, really, and now we automated the process, so we could basically have the evaluation done by the manager in the automated tool. So it's a combination of RPA with workflow, and the added advantage that we found out as we were looking at the process, sometimes a candidate applied who was not the great fit for the role, but he would be or she would be a fit for another position, and we could actually, as you see in the middle of the screen, reassign the candidate for another role that might have been a better fit. And ultimately, we implemented this process, and I got an email, because I was the project lead, as you can imagine. I got an email from the head of HR sending a personal thank you message. Eric, until today, we spent hours every day on the recruitment process, really shuffling paper, as I said. And now, because of this automation tool, finally, my HR team can do the work that we hired them to do. And this is, of course, a big benefit of automation, but hopefully it also comes across it's a big benefit of automation with a little bit of process rethinking to make the solution better for everybody. So the managers are happy, the HR team is happy, and of course, it's easier to apply at this company now as well. So it's a good example of like a win-win-win situation. And with that, I'll end my presentation. So thank you very much for listening and entertaining and participating in our in our little interactive exercise. I hope you enjoyed it, that it was not just listening, but also hopefully learning and participating a little bit. So thank you very much.
So we open the floor for questions. Any kind of question for Eric?
Not too many arguments on the waste types, please. if you think you had the right answer. Yeah.
Or maybe if you want to share some of your experiences or how you've handled some process wastes, you are free to share that. Thank you.
I see Benson has rose his hand. Benson, you want to type your question in the chat panel or just unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yeah, I can ask. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Benson from Gcash. So we're a mobile wallet player in the Philippines. So I just have a question.
Yeah.
So for most processes, right, there is always some space to maybe remove waste or further streamline the process. So my question is, what do you think is the threshold or the point at which like you will say that, okay, I will accept the present state of my process and then do RPA or start automating?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting, it's a good question, right? And I don't want to go against what I said, but there is sometimes automation can save so much time that it might be better to automate first and then do the process redesign afterwards. That's what you're saying, Benson, right?
Yeah. So I guess it's like, at what point will you say I'll do RPA first, or maybe you still see space to further improve the process, but
well,
then
sorry, I didn't want
but then will there be are there situations wherein you would say that, okay, automating this process rather than maybe redesigning it further improving it will be better?
Yes. No, like I am not so dogmatic that I will say you always have to fix before you automate. It sounds like counterintuitive, but and I had this actually, one of the MVPs, Eduard Slepetsky, is organizing a webinar on this particular topic, and we had some exchange before. Like, there's a bit of a mathematical formula, and if you're interested, I'll post a blog or share the blog with you. But it comes down basically, if you can automate and you save at least 2 headcounts of capacity, right? You don't have to fire people necessarily, but if you can save 2 FTEs right away with automation, there's a mathematical formula behind it, but it might make more sense to automate first and then do the redesign later, because you get so much savings out of the process, out of the automation, that the savings sort of outweigh the extra effort later on to change things again. Does that help, Benson?
Yeah, or maybe to rephrase my question a bit. So, for example, I have a certain process that somehow is doing okay. Like, there's not a lot of waste anymore. I mean, I see some waste.
Yeah.
Right. So, at what point will I say, okay, I think like I'll accept the present state of the process and start doing RPA, as opposed to continuing to reduce the waste?
Yeah.
At what point will I say or start automating? Yeah.
That's a slightly harder question, because it's because the way you phrase it is a bit more judgment based. I think on one hand, like we always say, continuous improvement never stops, right? But ultimately, I think, and I don't want to hide between formulas, but it's sort of the same trade-off. Like it's a function of how long would it take to make the changes. Right, and I have to share this blog now with you, because I think I tried to answer the question there, but it's ultimately if you can do a relatively quick fix, right? Because in an automation delivery project, you often are under some sort of time pressure, right? You have a commitment to deliver it by a certain time. So I think ultimately it's a trade-off, but it comes down to, if it's something you can fix relatively easily, just a few days of work, but it has a huge impact on the time savings, then do it. If it's something that requires quite a bit of extensive work, then you have to price it and then compare it with what the incremental impact would be, right? And that this is this formula thing that I was trying to avoid a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So at the end of the day, it's really financial impact, like what will deliver.
Financial impact is always a good is always a good way to sort of compare, right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We also have another question from Pavan. How we can apply Lean Six Sigma?
Yeah. Well, like this was more around Lean than around Six Sigma. So Six Sigma, maybe to explain that a little bit, Six Sigma is a statistical process improvement method where you define what is good and what is not good, and then you measure, you basically measure how often you're not good, and then you do your root cause analysis, your 5 times why, right? So why am I missing a deadline? Why am I having defects? Six Sigma is a good process improvement methodology, particularly for more mature processes. Yeah, it's probably not an answer I can give in 2 sentences, but what makes Six Sigma interesting is it's very data-based, right? It's around measurements and using statistical analysis on your data. Traditionally in service processes, we haven't seen a lot of that because it's sometimes hard to actually to measure more than just how long does something take. But in manufacturing processes, you have to often a lot more indicators. But what is interesting nowadays, as with RPA and with AI, data is becoming increasingly relevant, right? And we collect and store more and more data. So there may be at some point a revival of Six Sigma capabilities to actually analyze that data and identify what is causing some undesired outcomes. So like personally, I have a background in Six Sigma, and it's been a little bit less prominent the last 2-3 years, but it may come up again. Like as with data, statistical analysis becomes a very interesting way to look at processes as well. So sorry that I hope I answered that in a somewhat useful way. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. And we also have another related question from Benson again. Six Sigma, can RPA work together, or usually what either one happens one after the other?
Yeah, well, it's I missed the question mark, but it is like I think like on Six Sigma I just gave an answer, but I think what Benson is alluding to, and also from the prior discussion, process improvement and process automation, they will both help to make the outcome better, right? And it is, one question is what comes first, and there I can assure you there's theoretical debates, if not fights, over that. I think the answer is it depends, like as we were just discussing. But the notion that Benson clearly has is, there is an element of process improvement that comes in process automation, and that's actually the key message that we're also trying to convey today. So, Benson, if you allow me to get away with that answer. Yeah. Good. I think Benson smilingly agreed, so that's good. Yeah, with that, if there's no other questions, then shall we give it back to Kumyong or Thomas to close out and invite people to the next event, or maybe again to the DEF CON?
Well, I think, Rick, you have done a better job inviting people to another event, given the quality of your presentation that I can do. But yes, definitely, it was an awesome presentation. I failed miserably on the quiz, and that's a message for me. So what's going to happen now, I'll definitely have to watch your presentation again. But for everyone, just feel free to share with us some ideas, some comments, anything that you may have. We will definitely try to have more events like this, leveraging our MVP's extensive experience. Meanwhile, take a look at UiPath Live, take a look at UiPath DevCon, and Eric, Juveria, Leiro, thank you very much. We really appreciate your you being with us here, and we're looking forward to another event. So we'll wrap it up. All the best to everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good to talk to you soon. Bye-bye.